Welcome to She Considers a Field podcast with coach, encourager, and fellow entrepreneur and homeschooling mama of four, Anna McLaughlin. As a homeschooling entrepreneur, you are uniquely positioned to impact the kingdom of God both deep through your investment in your children and wide through your business. And yet guilt, frustration, and overwhelm can hold you back from all that God has for you. Come with me on a journey to walk in deeper peace, purpose, and joy, because God has given you a legacy to build, and I'm here to help you enjoy the ride. What is up, friends? Okay, so we are going to talk today about just a little bit of a deeper dive. We talked about self-care last week, and now we're going to dive a little deeper, and we're going to say, okay, like, how can this look? How can we practically, what are some things that we can do that are really simple to tend to what God has given us? And I'm going to again bring it back to, there was a long period of time. Oh, no. We're going to pray first. We are. Lord, thank you so much that you are God. And I pray for each one of my sisters that's listening today that you would minister deeply to her mind and her body and her soul, that she would feel you tending her, and that she would fall even more deeply in love with you today. Please guide my tongue as I speak. Let my words be uplifting and edifying. And let us go out from this time, from this conversation together, knowing and loving you better and being better able to serve our people. In your holy name, amen. Okay, so I like to say I'm a collector of wisdom. There's not a lot necessarily that I've really come up with on my own. The Lord has certainly given me things over the years, but there is so much, y'all, so much that I have found that has just enriched my life deeply. And there was a long period of time where I was kind of living just in spirit world, and I alluded to this a little bit last week, just in spirit world, but much less in this idea of the physical and the tangible. So here is my story. I grew up in a non-Christian home. I had been saved since I was 11, and but I didn't really have quality, healthy mentorship. So I hit my 20s and was really struggling. I had been walking with the Lord closely for years. I loved him. I devoted my life to him, but I was I was messy. I had really challenging interpersonal relationships. I made bad choices. I didn't know how to clean up messes. I didn't know how to reconcile when things were hard with people. I tended to just kind of cut and run. And I was very aware of my sin. I was very aware of my shortcomings. I remember a friend of mine in law school being like, every time we talk, you're like really struggling. Like, what's going on? You're never just okay. And I remember looking at him. I was friends with both he and his wife. And I remember looking at him and being really confused. Like, are you actually just okay? Are you okay in your life? Because I'm not okay. I've never been okay. Over the years, and especially over the past decade, more and more, the Lord has healed my body as a way to heal my mind. It turns out, and if you don't know this, so I'm more of a crunchy girl. I bend a little bit more that way. The alignment between our body and soul is quite powerful. When our gut health is out of order, our mental health will be affected. When we're dehydrated, when we're sleep deprived, when we're living in a constant state of stress and fight or flight. And for me, I had some trauma from my parents' divorce and my dad's illness and paralysis, which I talked about in a prior episode. During my really formative years, I was kind of 10 to 12 years old. There were these 10 to 13. There were these huge changes going on in the stability of my life. You know, this idea that no matter what, here's what your family looks like. When you lose that as a child, it hits hard. And that change, especially the age that I was when it all took place, really wrecked me and left me just limping along, desperately in need of healing, and not even having a context for that. Okay. This is something that we've really reclaimed in this generation of parenting, this idea of looking back and healing what was before. But it wasn't something that as a child of the 80s and 90s was really part of the dialogue for parents at that time. And so lo and behold, what I had thought was my own sin and damage was that in part, but it was also needing to engage with the idea of permission to rest, drink water, move your body, get quality supplements. So this is your sampler platter of not everything, but many of the things that the Lord has used to shore me up over the years. Because lo and behold, when our bodies are better tended, our minds and our souls are better tended as well. My website is almost done. It might even be finished by the time you listen to this podcast, in which case it'll be in the show notes. And I literally have a whole section on mind, body, and soul care where I have a shortened version of this list of just like, boom, here it is. Here are all the things or here are some of the things that I love that have served well. Because listen, if you are going to homeschool your children, if you are going to be on the front lines of educating your children, if you are going to run a business as a means of bringing in financial provision for your family, I talked last week about self-care. It's not optional. It is not optional. You must maintain the engine of the car if we are the car, right? You must maintain the engine of the car. You must tend to the vehicle for you to be able to live out your purpose well, okay? And when we choose not to tend to the vehicle, when we choose not, and this is not about like, we can get so fixed on results. Like, I want to lose weight. I want to sleep better. I want to have more peace in my life. And we can get really frustrated when we don't start seeing the results that we want. But what I want to commend to you guys is the idea that when you take action in the direction that you want to end up, the results will follow. And so maybe we need to be less concerned with whether it takes a year or 3 years or 5 years, and be far more concerned with our trajectory. Because when our trajectory is oriented towards tending to ourselves, to our spirits, to our hearts, then the results will follow, right? And it may not be in the timeline we want. It may not look exactly the way that we want it to. Listen, this world is fallen. It's imperfect. But we first need to decide, okay, it's worth it. And we can feel really uncomfortable saying, well, I'm worth it. Okay, listen, if that feels uncomfortable, like put a little asterisk and say, I'm worth it because he deems me worthy. Okay? It's not because you're better than anybody else. It's not because you're not broken and sinful, but like he has oh gosh, there's this great quote that my dad grabbed hold of right before he got cancer when I was about 13. He was starting to engage more deeply in the things of God, and he ended up coming to faith through his ordeal with cancer. And this quote became a lifeline for me while he was sick. Let's see if I can catch it all. I have great worth apart from my performance, for Christ gave his life for me and therefore imparted deep value to me. I am deeply loved, fully pleasing, totally accepted, and forgiven in Christ. I think I caught it all. Pretty close. Okay, so he has imparted great value to you. Okay? And therefore, it is right to tend what he has given you. Okay? And the beautiful thing is, first of all, when we tend what he has given to us, we are coming from a place of fullness when we serve. Okay? I don't know if you've ever been around anybody, or maybe you've been this person. I certainly have at times, where you're kind of giving, but you got this little chip on your shoulder. Like, I remember I would make dinner for our family when we were really, really new with all the little kids. And I was trying to be more natural. So like things just did not taste great because I was still learning. So it was like, oh, we're not going to use any sugar. It's just maple syrup, maybe maple syrup, and not much of it either. And then, black bean brownies and all that thing. And listen, I'm sure you can make them in a way that tastes really delicious, but I was just learning. So it was a mess. And my husband would look at me with this, I'd be like, how do you like it? And he'd look at me with this funny expression. And the line, which has become an inside joke ever since, was, it's not you, it's the ingredients. And I would be so furious because I was like, what do you mean you don't like it? I worked so hard on this, right? Because my worth was tied up in his response. The kids wouldn't eat it. I would be so mad. They would start eating before I sat down. Rather than training my children, I just fussed because bad fruit was coming out because of my wayward heart, because of my bad heart in that context. And so we've all been around people like that. Sometimes we've been people like that. It's a sign that we're coming from deficit instead of fullness. When we can really rest in, I did my best. And by the way, no, you don't have to be rude about it, but like I did my best. I was called to feed you. I fed the people. I've done what I can do. I'm actually giving you something that's better for you than you would have gotten otherwise. And then we can rest in that. Then all of a sudden the complaints don't bother us, right? Okay. So, we're going to be filled. The other thing is we're teaching our people how to tend to themselves. I mentioned in last week's episode that one of the studies that, or one of the findings that Brene Brown found in her data, so she's actually looking at quantitative data, what comes at qualitative data, what comes out in the stories that people are telling, is that we are unable to give what we have not been willing to receive ourselves. Okay. So if we are always beating ourselves up for any mistakes, our children will catch that even if we speak a message of grace. If we speak a message of grace, but we are not willing to offer it to ourselves, we are acting as hypocrites in that area, and our children will catch what is true. Okay? So I'm going to underline that a little bit. Okay? Let me just say this one more time. When we are saying one thing and we are not practicing it ourselves, when we are speaking to our children grace, but when push comes to shove and everything hits the fan, we are not willing to extend grace to ourselves, our children will identify the hypocrisy and they will grab hold of what is true. Now, I'm not talking big T true, I'm talking true of our own actions. They will read between the lines, they will see, okay, they say grace, but what they really mean is grace until you mess up. And then it's condemnation. And that, my friends, is what our children will exhibit. Okay. So that's why tending to ourselves is so important. Okay. So it's going to keep us from like having that chip on our shoulder, having the yuck come out. It's going to allow us to equip our children to walk in grace and mercy. And it's actually going to increase our effectiveness. Because when we are truly operating from a place of fullness instead of deficit, man, there's no stopping us. There's no stopping us, okay? The impact is powerful. Keep in mind, we've talked in here before, our impact is both deep and wide. So it may be that you're in a season where most of what you are doing is deep, sowing into the lives of your children, ministering to them, educating them, tending to your marriage, rebuilding crumbling foundations. That is key, critical kingdom work. Do not disparage it just because it's to a small number. That's the way the world counts things. How many followers do you have? How many likes did it get? How many people were at that conference that you spoke at? Whatever it might be, that's the world's economy. God's economy says, what are you giving that I have given to you? Right? He does not differentiate between the 2-talent servant and the 5-talent servant. They both get the same blessing. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in little, I will set you over more. Enter into the joy of your master. We both receive the same blessing. So it is not for us to decide how big the number of people in our audience is, whether it's just our family or whether it's beyond. And keep in mind, this season of deep, it ends. It doesn't last forever. And then beyond that, there is ample time for us to spread out and minister to the people beyond our 4 walls. Okay? Now, so the way I talk about this with a friend of mine is I'm like, sometimes you just need a little, whatever it is, sometimes you just need a little collagen. That's one of my favorites. Y'all, I'm going to give you guys a list of all the things that have served me well. Okay. Some of these are affiliate things. So you know, but I'm not going to share anything that has not been tested, that I don't love, that I don't like wholeheartedly feel the benefit of myself. Okay. So, I had a story in my notes. I'm like, do I tell this right now? All right. So I'm going to talk to you guys about the health piece first, because this is the thing that really was transformative for me. So I had a lot of anxiety. I had digestive issues growing up. I didn't even know that wasn't normal, because that's, you just don't talk about that stuff. And then going into my 20s, I had Graves' disease. I was able to get it managed by actually getting out of the really stressful situation I was in. It turns out that being in a bad relationship and eating McDonald's all the time and not sleeping because you're working at a law firm and basically being stressed out because everybody was getting laid off because it was 2008, which, wasn't a great time to be in the marketplace at all. Isn't that great for your health? So we got that managed, and that was kind of the beginning of me really digging into this holistic health world. Fast forward to about a decade later, I was literally, I started getting hives. Like I broke out in itchy spots all over, and I was like, what the monkey is this? Like, what are we dealing with right now? And I like hit it hard with all of my lawyer energy. I'm going to take whatever supplements you want me to. I'm going to do whatever testing you want me to. I'm going to do the blood work. I'm going to do all the things. I got myself more and more frustrated because every day, what was I doing? Nothing but looking at my skin and getting really frustrated and really irritable. So there came a point where I was working with a functional medicine person who was fabulous. And I started crying on the phone, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I think I just need to be itchy for a while. And I spent the next few months taking baths, taking walks, going to bed, taking naps, just really taking care of myself without any sort of expectation on the results. Instead of being so results driven of like, I better feel better, I better look better, this better get resolved or else I'm going to be really mad. I just accepted where my body was in the moment. And I was healing from some pretty significant disruption at the time. There had been some really hard moments that had happened in our family preceding that. And you know what? Like 3 or 4 months later, my husband looked at me. He was like, you haven't talked about your skin in a while. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I don't itch anymore. Like I wasn't even thinking about it. And so this is the beauty, you guys, of just these small practices to tend to our souls. Okay. So here's my laundry list of many favorites. And I talked about some of these last week. So this is kind of like we're looping back to a similar conversation, but we're going a little bit deeper. And we're also saying like little things matter. Okay. These little nudges, these little ways of tending to ourselves. This is part of how we ensure that we are going to be able to operate with maximum effectiveness. And we just create a new habit, we pick it up for a season, and maybe we then incorporate another habit and then another one, or then we maybe lay down the one that we had before. Like there are some things in here where I'm like, oh, I'm not so mindful to do that anymore. But at the time, it was really helpful. So we're just going to take a moment, and I just want to invite you guys to just kind of like put your hand on your heart or take a deep breath and just see what the Holy Spirit highlights for you as I give you this list. So again, just as a reminder, I'm a crunchy girl. These are kind of more holistic in their bent, okay? And so take what you like and leave the rest. But know that this is an opportunity to just get quiet before the Lord and say, what do you want me to do next? To take care of this vessel that you gave me so that I can steward it well, so that I can serve your people well and receive your love at a deeper level because I am more accessible. I'm not in all the stress and anxiety and shoulds and ought tos. I'm really listening to you and to what you are telling me this body that you gave me needs. Okay? Listen, Mama, with as many different things as you're juggling, I'll bet some days you struggle to remember to eat breakfast. Failing to take care of yourself not only dampens your joy, but it also impacts your ability to serve those you love the most. And yet, you need an easy solution, something that will give you maximum impact without being crazy complicated. Sound about right? Let me share with you my favorite supplement and the only one of its kind, Modaire's Liquid Collagen. Since taking it, I've found more energy, more mental margin, and fewer lines and wrinkles too. My hair is also growing like crazy. One product helps me look better and feel better, and it tastes great too. Interested? Click the link below for a free quiz to figure out which blend is right for you, and then follow the steps to get free shipping and $25 off your order. Because healthy, well-fortified mamas build powerful legacies. So, we're going to cultivate curiosity. We're going to pick one thing today, maybe two. Okay? All right. So here are a few of my favorites. Grounding. Did you know if you get your feet in the dirt, like I'm talking grass, I'm talking mud, I'm talking sand, anything that God made, not concrete, okay? The earth has polarity to it, and our body starts to like be part of that circuit. And it actually helps detoxify our body. It brings us out of fight or flight and into rest and restore. It can literally be just as simple as being out with your kids while they're playing and kicking your shoes off. Okay? Doesn't matter what temperature it is. Although, of course, it's more fun when it's summertime. Breath work. I talked to you guys about James Nestor in the book Breathe. Breath, the book Breath. Gratitude, keep a list, okay? Or make a practice like whenever I wash dishes, I'm going to list 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I'm like, y'all, maybe this is the one that I pick up because I've been more intentional in my gratitude practice at other times and I need to bring it back. Water. One of my friends keeps her big water carafe on her kitchen counter. No, it's her bathroom counter. And every time she goes in to use the restroom or brush her teeth or whatever, she takes a big long drink. And so she's getting more than twice her body or more than half her body weight every day, which is our recommendation. It's not 8 glasses. It's actually half our body weight in ounces. Okay. Nourishing food with no guilt. Enjoy. Enjoy the plethora of flavors that he has given you. Sleep. My functional medicine lady, or one of my people, um, she read this thing that said, imagine that you are putting your favorite toddler down for a nap when you go to put yourself to sleep. Think of like the soft music and the dim lights and the cozy blanket. We need to nurture and nourish ourselves with sleep. I heard someone else describe hushing the house. My eyes start to hurt if the bright lights are on too late. So we turn everything down low, we quiet the music, we quiet the activity, and we start to get ready for sleep. Okay. Activating the senses: touch, smell, taste, hearing, and sight. What are we listening to? What are we looking at? This morning I went outside and I just listened to the birds for a few minutes. Music, lotion, nice essential oils. Okay. Correcting our posture, napping, or resting, just lying there, even if we don't fall asleep. Cuddling with other people, touch is so key. Lymphatic drainage, okay? Our lymph system is one of our main detoxifying tools, and it's kind of taking out the trash by collecting. There's like these collection points. I think one is at your sternum, and another is kind of at the creases of your legs, and it's this dumping ground that brings the toxins from our cells and the waste from our cells and helps excrete it out of the body. I think it ends up going in our I don't know, excretory system somewhere. Anyway, we need to be well hydrated for the lymph to move. Okay. We also need to move our bodies for the lymph to move. Okay. Because it does not have its own pumping mechanism like blood does through the blood vessels. So we actually need to be in motion with muscles contracting and expanding, contracting and whatever the other word for it is. I don't know if it's expanding, to move things along. So rebounding is huge, like getting on a trampoline and jumping, even walking and running in motion to get things moving. Cold plunge, y'all, I don't want to do this. It's on my list where it's like, if I get something real serious, maybe we're doing this. It can literally be as simple as turning down the shower, making it colder, colder, colder as you're in there, or starting it cold, and then you can have your warm shower when you've had your medicine and you're good to go, right? But I'm going to just be really honest. This is one of the places where I'm kind of a baby, where I'm like, I don't want to do that. But you know what? There may come a season where that's exactly what I need. So cold plunges are key. Okay. They do a really good job resetting your system and helping your metabolism. So it's really great. And I'm just not going to be a hypocrite about it. I have not gone there. Movement, walking, stretching. I told you guys about the Lindy Well app. I really like them. I'm still struggling to catch rhythm, but this is one of those things where I was like, I'm going to keep talking to you guys about it so that I can't get away with whether I'm doing what I want to be doing for myself or not. I'm just going to keep being real with you guys. Movement is an area where I'm still really working. I actually wear a steps counter that my goal is to get to 10,000, but I put it on every day so that I can at least hold myself accountable, even if I don't actually pull it off. This is a big one, mamas. Eat your food at the table. Sit down and breathe and chew. So interesting. When I worked with one of my functional medicine people, one of the first things she talked to us about was food etiquette. Do you sit at the table and chew your food? And I had to laugh. I'm like, I'm a mom of 4. Do you really think I do that? I wait until the lunch is cold and they've all left the table. And then I basically go in like a scavenger and eat what they have not eaten. Like, that's how we roll around here. But it's been so interesting to be like, oh, there's a different way to do it. And it's actually way better because you digest a lot better when you're breathing and chewing and just kind of resting in your food. Not literally. Intermittent fasting, y'all, even just saying I do not eat between 7 a.m. Nope, flip it. 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. or 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. Now, people who are really looking to reset their systems, they do longer stretches than that. But even just being intentional about that extended gap over bedtime can really help give your body room. So, because it takes energy for our body to digest food. And so when we're in digestion mode, we're not in rest and restore mode. We're not in detoxifying mode. So we need to give our body a nice long pause so that it can take out the trash. Okay. Take a bath, Epsom salts, essential oils, baking soda, apple cider vinegar, all of these things to help nurture our bodies. Okay. Now here are some of my go-tos that I have really loved. Massage and craniosacral therapy all help bring your nervous system down. And y'all, I have a couple of wild craniosacral stories. I'm going to tell them to you real quick. Okay. First, we had 3 children who were lip tie, tongue tie restricted, which was kind of a big conversation starting. I didn't find out about it until our second, when I was like, why is he not crawling? And then we started, I think we started having some nursing issues or something. We somehow figured out that he was restricted. And this is pretty common with the whole, there's this gene that they call the MTHFR gene, which causes difficulties with detoxifying, basically. Okay, so bring him to a craniosacral therapist. And she looks at me and she was like, has he started crawling yet? I was like, no. She said, let me guess. He lays on his belly and kind of flaps his feet like a fish. And I was like, yeah. It's because of his lip tie, tongue tie. It was like having a rubber band stretching from his mouth to his ankles or to his feet. So he didn't want to crunch his legs up underneath him to start crawling. One session with her and he was crawling. So that was the first one. Second, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to actually tell you the third story before the second, because the second one's so crazy. You're not going to believe it. Second story. And craniosacral therapy basically deals with the fascia, which is that little membrane that covers the muscle. And the idea is it can get tangled like a bed sheet. And so craniosacral therapists help straighten it, which brings a lot of relief and brings you into that rest restore instead of fight or flight, and helps with a lot of physiological challenges. Fell down the stairs when my youngest was a year old. I was holding him and I really jacked up my back. I went to the chiropractor, I think 6 or 8 times, didn't move the needle very much at all. I was still in a lot of pain after several weeks. I went to one craniosacral visit, and they work with emotion too, how emotion traps in the body. I have 4 craniosacral stories. You guys, I was not going to make this a craniosacral thing, but these stories are so wild, I can't even help myself. Okay, so she had me talk about the fall, how I felt guilty. I was worried about my son. I felt like a bad mom. I felt stupid. Like, she had me talk through the emotional experience. I walked out of there, you guys, 100% better. Could not even believe it. Like, just that one session. Similarly, after my dad died, I was having trouble breathing. This is not uncommon. Grief stores in the lungs, and I was with him when he died. So I would wake up feeling like I couldn't breathe, like I'd forgotten how to breathe, like it was hard because, of course, I was with him and all the way through. And went to a craniosacral therapist. There are 2 ladies that I've worked with in Charlotte. They're both amazing. So if you're in this area, let me know if you want their names. She had me talk about my dad and what he meant to me, what was great about him, what was hard in our relationship, what was great in our relationship, what I remembered, his passing, while she worked on primarily my heart and chest. Like, she was just, kind of like helping me around my lungs, basically, but also up into my throat, like all the places where we breathe. And I've never had an issue with breathing after that, but I cried and released the emotion. It was very precious. I'm so thankful for her. And then the last one I'm going to share with you is I was in session just trying to do some self-care while we were in the middle of the childbearing years. And and all of a sudden, this is the craziest story. So she's working on my back, and all of a sudden she goes, "Oh." And then she gave me this really weird look, and she was like, "Have you started your cycle since having your kid?" This was after my second, and I had come in for us to fix his lip tie, tongue tie stuff. I was like, "No, actually not yet." And she goes, "Oh, okay. Well, there might be something going on there." Like, literally a couple days later, we found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And I was like, "Did you know?" She's like, "Well, yeah." She was just kind of like, "Hi." Literally, you guys, this baby was like a handful of weeks old. She was no more than 6 weeks old at that time. Isn't that crazy? So she knew I was pregnant before I did from craniosacral. So that's one of my favorite self-cares. Adding electrolytes to your water. I've got one that's got minerals in it that I just love. It's called Revitalize. Dry brushing, castor oil packs. You guys, those can do so much to help bring your nervous system down, to get you out of fight or flight because it's helping detoxify the liver. So much of our anxiety can actually be caused by these trapped toxins. Like we need to be expelling for, in delicate terms. Okay. Listening to audiobooks, fun books, reading fun books, not just eat your vegetables books. There's this really cool system called the Caecilia system that actually brings you back into proper alignment using gravity. Okay. And I have it on my website. So once it gets up and rolling, you can check it out there. Essentially, you lay on this pillow system and it brings you into spinal alignment like a chiropractor does, but it's actually stretching the muscles so you hold your shifts much better than with simple chiropractic, I personally think. Okay. Movement. We talked about that. And then here's the last thing, and this has been such a sweet story for me. So, I had struggled with anxiety throughout my life, and I always thought I was crazy, you guys. Within the past 4 or 5 years, somebody started talking to me about the importance of iodine, and that. So I started taking high dose iodine. I worked with a practitioner to figure out what I needed. And I went from, I think I'm crazy to, oh, I think this might be chemical. So that brought me one step. And then about 6 months ago, I started taking this collagen. And I started taking it because I was like, okay, this is supposed to be really good for for fine lines. It's supposed to be really good for your hair. I'd had some thinning hair since COVID. It's supposed to be great for your just all your organs. So it's a great preventative was kind of how I saw it. So I saw it as like a foundational health tool. Y'all, all of a sudden, I'm more patient. My mental margin has expanded. Brian and I's ability to work through challenging things, because he's on it as well, has greatly increased. This particular collagen, unlike any other on the market, actually not mimics, sorry, I always say that word. That's the wrong word. It stimulates collagen production across all the types. So it's actually giving you the couple of dozen types of collagen, because not only do you get the dose itself, which is what so with a collagen supplement, typically you get collagen. You take a tablespoon of collagen, you get a tablespoon of collagen. With this collagen, you take a tablespoon of collagen, it gives you a tablespoon of collagen and stimulates your body to produce its own collagen. Okay. So then you're getting that as well. And it's also like 90% bioavailable. And so it was actually helping my gut. And I've got friends where they have food sensitivities that they've actually been able to overcome because they've got this. The other thing I started taking is this supplement called OVA, which is an herbal supplement that helps balance hormones. And so, y'all, I went from 5 years ago, it was, there's something wrong with me. Got the iodine going, and it was like, okay, I know that I think that there's something wrong with me, but that it's actually a chemical thing. And it was always like the couple of days before my cycle. Now, there's nothing. Like the anxiety is gone. The PMS anxiety is gone. The discomfort during my cycle is gone. It's gone. One pill. So for me, self-care always felt hard and heavy. And now it's like one pill, 1 tablespoon of collagen. The collagen's twice a day. The pill is once a day. And I'm taking care of myself. I feel better. Our quality of life has improved. So y'all, it doesn't have to be hard. It can be simple. It can be small. If you guys want information about any of the stuff I've shared with you, there's going to be links in the show notes. I've got a $25 off coupon for the collagen. I think you can get $20 off for a subscription for Lindywell, like $45 off for the Caecilia system. I've kind of pulled together those links for you guys so that you can get the best bang for your buck. Think about what feels like it would serve you well today. What does your soul need? What does your body need? What does your spirit need? And then take the next step. Okay. All right. So that's today, kind of practical. We're going boots on the ground, but sometimes we need these things. We forget sometimes that we're physical beings as well as spiritual beings. And so tend to what God has given you. This is actually the best way to be of service, because then you are coming from a place of fullness instead of deficit. Okay. All right. That's it for today. Until next time, friend, you've got this. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of She Considers a Field. If you found value in this episode, I would be so grateful if you would leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and be sure to share with a friend who needs some encouragement on her journey today too. Until next time, remember, you've got this because he's got you.